Today's episode of Dead City might have been the best one of the season so far, and a lot of that has to do with the character on screen here. We got a proper introduction in this episode to the character of Bruegel, who was kind of in the background in the Negan speech at the church in episode 1 of this season, but now he's a bit more fleshed out. He's getting a lot of dialogue in this episode, and we get to know the real character, and I think that he's the standout of the season so far, which is really good for the spin-offs at this point in the Walking Dead franchise, because we really need kind of new original characters in these spin-offs, because a lot of the story hinges on the characters from the original series. So we need new blood in there. We got the actor Kim Coates from Sons of Anarchy, which I hear is a great show. I've only seen a couple episodes, but everybody loves that show. And he brings that charisma, that talent to this role. And I think he's an interesting character. He's the wealthy guy. He's had these gladiator fights with zombies, which they actually explain in this episode. So we'll get back to that later on. But I think this character stands out and is the most interesting part of the season so far. We're trying to convince him to join the cause against New Babylon, and that's what this episode hinges on. Going to his kind of museum where we see his collection of art, and the Dama and Negan and the Croat are trying to bring him on board so that they can, bring the fight to New Babylon. Although, based on how New Babylon has been acting, I don't think that they're going to have that hard of a time against them, to be honest with you. But that aside for now, we also got some more interesting cinematography in this episode. I think we have a new director coming in, and there's a lot of evocative shots here. We had some canted angles here with the vehicles. We had some slider shots that are a lot more expressive than we're used to seeing on the show, at least so far this season. So I did appreciate the kind of new visual flair in this episode, and it almost kind of brought me back to more earlier Walking Dead episodes where they got a little bit more creative with some of the camera work. So I did appreciate that as well, so I'd give that a shout out. But basically here, we're just all converging on this one location. There's this negotiation going on with this guy Bruegel, and the Dama and the Bruegel are just kind of, acting phony towards each other, being fake politician nice to each other when there's obviously more going on under the surface. And then back, with the people at Central Park, there's Ginny getting discovered for having the gun, and she drops the truth about Negan to the New Babylon folks. So Pearlie's going to get some comeuppance of some kind, I'm sure. He's going to have to answer for knowing that Negan is alive and lying about it. So there's going to be some consequences there, I think. But one thing that bothered me in this scene in the showing off the art was they have these mirrors, right, to bounce light around, and they're shining direct sunlight, well, indirect sunlight, but bounced off a mirror at the painting, and you just don't do that because that will damage the paints. And I know that this guy would know that, this guy, the Bruegel, would definitely 100% know that you're not supposed to shine direct sunlight on the painting. But besides that, it is just cool to see. It's definitely a recurring theme in not just this show, but also the Daryl Dixon show. The visual of art being kind of representative of the past world, and then bring it into a new context, and it kind of sets the scene for the themes of the episode. And here we got George Washington as I believe he's crossing the Delaware or something like that. So this is, of course, symbolic of them fighting off the invading forces, so to speak. So that's definitely something that they keep coming back to, which is kind of interesting. And here we got a scene with Pearlie, Hershel, and Maggie. And half of the scene I liked, and then half of it I didn't, right? The first half, it's just your typical kind of apocalyptic conversation where you're like, what do you miss about the old world? And, they're talking about candy bars and all that. And then, for one, Maggie says that she hasn't seen a candy bar since 3 years into the apocalypse. And maybe she didn't go that deep into the Commonwealth, but I'm pretty sure they have candy at the Commonwealth, right? I mean, they have ice cream. How much harder could candy be? So, but anyways, besides that, then this conversation goes off the rails, right? Because there's all this conversation about the old world, and Hershel's like, I don't know what's so great about the old world. And I can understand, he's been brainwashed and all that, but these other two people don't have a response to that, because he's like, oh, the old world was just people fighting over resources and violence. And obviously that happens. Warfare, terrible thing. It's going on right now as we speak. And even just on a smaller scale than the big conflicts that are going on in the world. It happens all the time. But still, proportionally, a lot less than is here in the Walking Dead universe. In the Walking Dead universe, there is not a single person alive that has not had to at least kill zombies, if not people, to survive. So everyone has to fight and be violent, right? But no, that's not what's going on in today's world, okay? There's a lot less violence than there is in the Walking Dead world by a massive gap, okay? So the fact that they didn't say, like, it wasn't like that for everybody. Like, most people in the United States are not involved in fighting a war over resources, okay? So the fact that they wouldn't correct the record on that is insane. So, and there's a lot of discussion about, like, the old world being just as bad and blah, blah. No, it's not. Or else we wouldn't be watching this show right now. We would be watching a show about the real world, and it's just so stupid, and I hate that we keep going back to that, but it's just a recurring theme. I get what they're going for. Obviously, there's a lot of problems in the world today, but that's something that really bugged me. So then we learn the past of the Dama, and she was a theater critic or something, and she bit a writer. So, I mean, that's kind of a funny detail, but I don't know. It's just, she is an odd person, so I guess it does kind of fit. But this guy, the history guy, who's just Milton 2.0, talks about her like she's not there, which I think is kind of awkward and funny. And meanwhile, the Croat's getting belittled and mocked for his accent, and then he snaps finally, because they've kind of let him be getting emasculated for a long time in the show now. So I was glad to see that he stood up for himself for once, even though, I don't like that guy. He's the bad guy in the show, right? But I still, feel like if he's going to be the bad guy, he has to, be nasty sometimes. And he had nothing to throw back at the guy until later on in the episode. So that was a bit frustrating. But, here we got Pearlie and Maggie scoping out the joint, and they see Negan later on. This lady from New Babylon gives Ginny the gun back, which I'm not really sure why. But she somehow sniffed out, oh, did your dad kill... or was your dad killed by Negan? And obviously Ginny knows that Negan is still alive, so... But how did she know about that? I don't know. Maybe I missed something, but it just seemed like she read her mind for some reason. I don't know, it was a bit odd. But yeah, Ginny wants to kill Negan, so that's been her motivation all along, which is something I suspected. But, we'll see what actually happens. We know that's not going to happen, because Negan's got that plot armor, dude. So that's definitely not happening. So we got Bruegel here wants his own methane. He doesn't want to just get it from the Dama and the Croat. He wants to have his own supply. So that's what he's asking for here. And the Croat stands up and says no. Here we got a scene with Hershel and Maggie. And, they're trying to get down to the depth of their relationship a little bit. He tells his side of the Firefly story from the first episode. And, basically the Firefly was not like a coincidental thing. Hershel brought it back to Maggie because she was crying about, Glenn not being there. So it's kind of a touching moment. So I definitely respect that they're trying to flesh out this relationship a little bit before the betrayal becomes apparent. And also the Dama confirmed earlier that they saw the signal fire and they knew that Hershel was coming along, and yet they continued to try to blow up the ship, and yet they also chastised Negan for trying to save Hershel's life, even though the Dama made Hershel be on their side through thorough brainwashing, put a lot of effort into that kid, and they punishing Negan for not blowing up the kid that they put so much effort into. That makes no sense. It makes no sense, okay? So I don't get that part, but, whatever, let's just roll with it, I guess. But maybe Hershel wasn't supposed to be there. He's supposed to light the fire and then stay back. But, I don't know what's going on there. There might be more to it. There might be an explanation. So, that all depends on what's revealed later on. But yeah, here we're breaking into the museum, and this is probably the dumbest scene of the show. So they set up a diversion essentially. I think Herschel or one of them sets the painting on fire. It doesn't really show who sets the painting on fire, but then they take the opportunity to draw Negan out by using the whistle, even though literally everybody in that room would hear the whistle, and it's not something that could be confused for like a bird or something. So they're doing this meeting in the open, where everybody else is right around the corner, and they almost get caught. And then Maggie does get caught by the Dama at the end. I think they have like this weird eye contact thing where they look at each other. I wasn't sure if they actually looked at each other or if they just wanted us to think that, but I'm pretty sure they actually did see each other. So I don't know the logistics here, like why they thought that was the best way to do it. But cinematically, I get it because, it's a cool backdrop to have, that cage fight there. Other than that, it's pretty good conversation here between Maggie and Negan. And, basically Negan ends up telling them where the methane is located. And then, Negan explains that his wife Annie and his son Joshua, I think they said, are being threatened. He explained that he can't help because of that. And then he helps anyway. So maybe listen to yourself, Negan. I don't know. But anyways, the rest of the group comes back. But of course, we have to have Herschel meeting up with the Dama. So now we have the zombies fighting each other again, and they kind of did show why it was zombies fighting each other, which was really weird as a Walking Dead fan to see zombies going after each other because they've never done that. But they basically cover them in, I'm assuming, like live human guts, and they're supposed to be trying to eat that. But that doesn't make any sense really, because the whole guts thing is supposed to do the opposite of that and make like dead human body parts and dead zombie body parts are the same thing. So I don't understand why the zombies go after one and not the other. And, the zombies, they get covered in the gore that's supposed to make you invisible to them, right? I mean, that's Walking Dead lore 101. Like, the second episode, they cover themselves in guts so that they can sneak through the horde because they don't stand out to the zombies anymore. That's the concept. And here we have zombies getting covered in live guts. That doesn't even make sense. They get covered in guts and now they're going after each other. It's really dumb. But it's actually not two zombies. One is a person pretending to be a zombie, and it's actually Bruegel's bodyguard or something that's been with him since the beginning, and he's talking to him at the beginning and the end. So that's a fun twist, but somebody in my comments did predict that, so good on you for getting that. But it's kind of a predictable twist because they really set up like, oh, your guy never loses. And why did nobody else ask that question if it really is like that guy never lost? I mean, obviously he's a human, so he has the advantage there. But yeah, it's just kind of odd. I guess they're trying to change up because we've had so many gladiator fights in The Walking Dead. Even the previous season of this show, the Croat had that. So we've had so much of that. They're trying to change it up, but they made it weird and not make sense. So I'm going to call that part out for sure. But, here we got this final scene where they have this wager going on, and if the Bruegel guy wins, he gets his own, his own methane. And if Negan wins, then I forget what it was. But Negan jumps in the ring to distract the zombies, but really what he's trying to do is distract everybody from Maggie up on the balcony there, trying to escape. But it didn't even work. The Croat looked up and saw her, and then she sees the Dama. She, of course, recognizes the Dama from Herschel's drawings. So she knows who that is. She knows she's making the connection with what Negan told her, that, Herschel has been brainwashed by the Dama and that, he can't be trusted. And then we have Negan whispering something in Bruegel's ear, which we do not get revealed what that is. I'm sure that's going to be very important. Negan's, of course, I'm assuming jockeying himself to be the one actually in charge and push out the Dama. Because the Dama's constantly pushing his buttons and talking about his family, like at the beginning and at the end of the episode. And you can just tell in his eyes, he's like, you're not going to make it out of this season, lady, if you keep talking like that. And I'm sure that she won't. So that's the end of the episode. We got, you know, Bruegel predictably murdering the guy now that their secret's out, even though, you know, it was kind of obvious that that was going to happen. And, you know, I don't know. It was a great scene, though. I like this character, and I hope to see more from him. But, yeah, poor guy. Tony, what a shame. But anyways, yeah, pretty solid episode. I would give it like a, you know, a 6 or a 7. Definitely my favorite one of the season so far. And, you know, hoping to see improvement down the road. Still, you know, we got those obvious plot issues. But other than that, you know, it's decent enough. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And with that, it's been your boy Shogi, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.